Welcome to creating an amortization schedule in Excel. My name is James Raymond, and I will be your instructor today. What is an amortization schedule? An amortization schedule is a table that contains the details of loans being repaid, where each payment includes both principal and interest. The most common forms of amortizing loans are car loans and home mortgages. So you may be thinking, why would I need to create an amortization schedule? By creating an amortization schedule, you will be able to see where payments go, mostly to paying interest in the early years and mostly to principal in the later years. Also, you will be able to calculate remaining principal balances at different dates. For example, this is important for anyone looking to sell their car, as cars depreciate quickly and principal is paid back slowly. Business decisions can also be made from the information included in an amortization schedule, such as the decision to buy or lease equipment. In this course, you will create an amortization schedule from scratch, use the information to help make decisions, and use the model for comparison purposes. Are you ready to begin? I thought so, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll begin in cell A1, and we'll begin working our way downward and start by putting in the data labels for the categories we'll need to begin making our amortization schedule. So the first category is purchase price, which will be the total price paid for whatever it is we're amortizing. Next is down payment, which is the amount of money we'll come out of pocket for. Next is points, and these are generally excess payments we make to a company in order to get a lower rate, essentially buying interest up front. Next is our loan amount, and that'll be the exact loan we're going to amortize. Next, rate. This will be the rate that we'll need to pay, and this is in percent. Next is number of payments, so number payments. This is the total number of payments we'll make over the life of the loan. Next is years. Number of years our loan will be outstanding. And then we'll do payments per year. And certain loans have monthly payments, others quarterly, semi-annually, once a year. So this will reflect for that. And finally here is payment. Payment. Delete the rest there. Excellent. And in cell 11, we'll do minimum payment. Min payment. And this will be the minimum payment due. This particular section we'll use for comparison purposes at a later time. Now looking at all these categories, we'll see that some of them, these data labels, they extend from column A into column B. In order to fix this, we have a couple options. The first one is we can highlight between A and B, those two columns, and drag it to a point that we like. Or if we double click, it'll widen the column to reflect the biggest cell that we have here, the longest word. So that's what I typically do, is double click. Fantastic. So next, let's go ahead and start entering in some of the formulas that'll calculate this. So we're going to start with B4, and this is the loan amount. In loan amount, and it's going to reflect the top three categories: how much we pay, how much we put down, and whether or not we do any points. So let's start with our equal sign since we're entering a formula. And the first section is we're going to take B1 and we're going to subtract out, so the minus sign, B2, and close our parentheses. And this shows how much I purchased and how much I put down on that particular item, whether it's a property or a car, a piece of equipment. And now we're going to adjust for the points. So we're going to hit the asterisk, and that'll be a multiplication, and open our parentheses up, and it'll be 1 plus, open other parentheses up, and B3, so I'll highlight B3 times 0.01, because each point represents 1% of the loan balance. And then I'll go ahead and close my parentheses and close my parentheses. So this will take purchase price minus my down payment and then add in any points that I have to pay, because that'll be my total loan amount. And then we're going to hit enter. So for example, if we put in a $220,000 loan and a $50,000 down payment, it'll show the balance being $170,000. But if I have to pay 2 points in order to get this rate, we'll see that it goes up by that $3,400, 2% of the pre-point loan balance. Excellent. So let's go ahead and move down. So in cell B6, number of payments, we're going to type in our equal sign, and this is merely years times, so the asterisk, payments per year, and hit enter. So if we have a 5-year loan and we have to make monthly payments, that'll show us that we have 60 payments over the life of that loan. In cell B9, working our way down here again, we're just going to put the equal sign and show the minimum payment. So in this particular case, we're going to make the minimum payment, which is equal to whatever we're going to calculate in B11. So let's calculate that payment. So in B11, we're going to use a little bit more of a complicated formula, and that's equals. We're going to open our parentheses, we're going to type in payment, open our parentheses, and if we look at the formula line, we can see that we're looking for a rate. So what is our rate? It's going to be this cell right here, and we're going to need to divide that by how many payments per year. This is how we calculate interest per payment period. Next, NPER, which stands for the number of payments, which will be in cell B6, so we can highlight B6. And then the present value, and that is going to be the loan amount. In this case, it's $173,400. So this is going to show us our payment. Now, right now I didn't enter a rate, so I need to enter a rate. So in this particular case, we're going to pay 7%. 7% in decimals is 0.07, and that would show that our payment is $3,433.53 on a monthly basis. Well, in this case, we're going to need to adjust our minimum payment and change the sign, negative. So that way it's going to give us a positive number. Since this is a payment we have to make, since we in this case are the borrowers, that's why it's a negative sign. It's actually cash flow that's out of our pocket. Now that we've got our loan information in, let's go ahead and begin starting building the table itself. So let's move to D1. And across the top, we're going to begin by putting more data labels. The first column is going to be payment number, so we can track which month or quarter or annual payment we're being made. Next column is beginning, as this will be our beginning balance. Next column is interest. This will be the amount of interest that is due. Next will be payment. And this will be obviously the payment that we're making. Next is going to be principal. And this is the amount of principal that will be paid as a portion of our payment. And next, ending. And this will be our ending balance for this pay period. And we're going to hit enter. And let's go ahead and adjust the columns. In fact, we'll make them all the same size. Let's widen those out a bit. And when you highlight them all and you drag one edge, it'll adjust all of them to the same width. So I'm just creating a little space there. Excellent. So in cell D2, let's go ahead and begin with the first payment. Now to calculate the payment, we begin with our beginning balance. So we're going to type in equals and go over to B4, and that is our beginning balance. This is the original loan amount. Next, we will calculate the amount of interest that is due for this payment period. And the amount of interest will equal, so the annual interest rate, divided by how many payments per year. In this case, it's 12. And we'll multiply that times the beginning balance of this period. So we'll highlight E2, and then we'll hit enter. And that'll give us $1,011.50. Next, we can reference the payment. So that will be equals. And we'll go over here to B9. We'll highlight B9. So that's the amount of payment we're making. The principal will be the difference between the payment we've made and the amount of interest due. So we can go ahead and say equals payment minus interest, and that will give us how much principal is paid for that period. And ending will be equal to how much we began with minus the amount of principal we paid, therefore would give us an ending balance of $170,977.97. Next, we will go ahead and start this second row for the next payment. So we're going to add 1, so it's going to be equals this payment plus 1, because this is going to be the next payment in line, so in this case 2. The beginning balance will equal the previous ending balance, so beginning now equals how we ended the previous period. The amount of interest. Now in this particular case, we're going to calculate it. We can use this formula. However, if we drag it down, it's going to move these down, and we don't want that. So we're going to delete that out. So to fix this particular scenario, we're going to add dollar signs. And a dollar sign before a character in a formula will essentially lock that particular either row or column. Well, because I'll be dragging this down, I don't want it to go down any particular rows. So I'm going to put it in front of the 5 and the 8. And therefore, it's going to lock in row 5 and row 8. So I will drag this down, and we see that the number has gotten smaller. The number should get smaller because the amount of principal due is now less. So that number should continually go down. And we see that it's still 7% and 12 payments per year, so we know that one's good. Payment, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to maintain the same payment. So I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the 9. And then principal, that formula is okay. So let's drag down this one. And in these two cases, we can drag those down because those need to look at the line we're currently on. Fantastic. Now that we've got our formulas built, let's go ahead and format. I always recommend you format last because when you make changes, it's always difficult sometimes to change formats if they're baked into your spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and select some of these cells that we want to format. In these cases, if we hold down the Control key, we can highlight multiple numbers and change their formatting all at the same time. So I've highlighted purchase price, down payment, loan amount, and beginning over here, and let's do interest as well. And let's click on the dollar sign here, and that'll format them so they all look like dollars and cents. Next, let's click on rate. That's 7%, and let's make it look like a percentage point. So let's add the percent sign, and then we want to extend it out a couple decimal places. So this way, if we said that the rate was 7.25, it would go ahead and show us all those digits. So in this case, will be 7.0 will be our rate. Now, we know that there's going to be 60 payments, so we want to drag this down, row 2 here. We want to drag this down until it reads 60. Now, currently we started on line 2. Therefore, we have to add 60 and subtract 1. So we'll drag it down to row 61, and that should in fact give us the 0 we're looking for in the bottom right corner. And in this case, it does. Because we're amortizing this down, of course, over 60 months, we know that eventually it'll come down to a 0 balance. So this is the basic amortization schedule. It shows how much we began with for each period and how much we ended with, how much principal we paid off, the payment we made, and of course how much interest was due. Interest should be declining as the ending balance continues to go down, and then the amount of principal should always be increasing. And at the end of the number of payments, we should always see that 0. Some of the other things that we can do is we can add some additional information. So let's go on up to K1. So in K1, we're going to enter a new label, and that's going to be cumulative principal, and then cumulative interest. And these two columns will add up how much principal we've paid for the entire life of the loan as of that payment period. So we're going to hit the equal sign, and now we're going to use the sum formula. And sum is we're going to go to the principal, sum h through h, because that's all we have at this particular time. But like we did before, we're going to close parentheses. We're going to put in the dollar sign so that it stays on the top level of principal. So in this case, we hit enter, but if we drag that down, it'll show the amount of principal that we've paid for the entire life of that loan. Okay, and if we just take a look and hit F2, we can see what it's summing, and it should be in the same row that we're summing. We can do the same thing for interest. So we equals sum. Let's go to the interest column through, same thing, F2, and let's lock it with a $sign. And this will show how much we've paid over the entire life of the loan. We can also do the same thing to create a column that shows the cumulative amount of payments we've made. So let's go up to cell M1, and we're going to type in cumulative payments. And the formula we're going to use is we're just going to add, so we're going to put equals K2 plus L2 and hit enter. So because these are already cumulative totals, we can just merely add the two columns together. Now we can copy that down and see that that keeps a running tally for all of our payments. Now let's go ahead and select cumulative principal, interest, and payments, and let's drag this all the way down to the bottom. And now we can see the total amount of principal that's been paid, the total amount of interest that's been paid, and the total payments that we've made throughout the life of this loan. So for originally $173,400 in loan cost us $206,000 in payments over the course of 5 years. This information is very important for anybody looking to make a financial decision. Next, we'll go ahead and look at a couple of scenarios and use these for comparisons. Scenario 1. You are to be transferred to a new city for 5 years. You have to choose whether to rent a home or buy one. The home you want to buy is $300,000. You have $60,000 for down payment, and the rate is 4.5% with no points. This is a 30-year loan. The home you want to rent costs $1,100 a month. Compare the two options. So now we will make the comparison. So if we scroll up to the top and we adjust for the new purchase price of $300,000, the $60,000 down payment, 0 points, and the 4.5% rate, and 30 years, we see that our payment is $1,216.04. Now, as we've discussed, rent is going to be $1,100. And we could format that. Now let's build a comparison. So we see our cumulative payments here. Now let's take a look at cumulative rent. So we'll put that, and let's do that in O1. Now we use the formula. This one's going to be a little bit different because it's the same payment. So we know that the payment in month 1 is going to be equal to that. Now all we're going to do is equals the previous payment plus the normal payment. We're going to lock in the $sign, and we're going to lock it on row 13. So that way when we copy it down, it'll keep it going. So see how it adds $1,100 to each. So let's go ahead and bring this on down, and we're comparing it for the first 5 years. So let's see. So far we pay $66,000 in rent as compared to $51,741 in interest. So the interest we're paying is less than the rent, and we've paid down $21,000 in principal over the course of that loan. When making a decision whether to buy or rent, there's a number of factors that we have to consider. The fact that there are fees associated with selling a property, and also that interest payments to a home are tax deductible. So there's not a clear answer of whether this individual should purchase this house or rent, but this is information that it will be very valuable in making that decision. For scenario 2, assume you are purchasing a home and have to choose between two different financing options. You expect to stay in the home for 10 years. You'll pay $300,000 for the home, and you'll make a $60,000 down payment. The first option, loan 1, you have a 30-year loan with a rate of 4.5% with no points. Loan 2 is also a 30-year loan, but a lower rate of 4%, which will cost you 2 points. Compare the two options. So let's go ahead and make that comparison. So by scrolling to the top, we see purchase price is accurate, down payment is accurate, loan amount, and the rate all accurate. So let's build the other scenario, and that's the lower rate where the purchaser has to buy those 2 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight, and when you highlight from A over to O, it's going to highlight everything that is in those columns, all the way down to the very, very bottom. Lots and lots of rows. So we're going to copy. So we're going to right click, copy. We'll just go a couple rows over, a couple columns over, and go ahead and right click and paste. So by pasting, it's essentially going to create the exact same scenario all the way down. But this time, we're going to look at something a little bit differently. Now, we're going to pay for 2 points, but the rate is going to be 4%. And let's see how it matches up 10 years later. Well, in our previous scenario, we only copied this down to 60 lines. Well, we have to go 120, so we have to copy it down 60 more lines. Right now, we are in row 61, so we highlighted all this information, and let's drag it on down to row 121. Now we're in month 120. So let's see what we have here. Now, in looking at these comparisons, and there's a couple columns we're going to look at. So if we scroll to the top, we see that we've got cumulative principal, cumulative interest, cumulative payments. Well, we know the payments are going to be the same. However, the interest we pay will be different. So will the principal. So in this case, scenario 1, we've paid down $47,000 of principal in $98,000 of interest. Let's see what we've done over here. Well, we've paid down $52,000 of principal and only $88,000 worth of interest. So if we compare these two columns, column AC and column L, we see that there's about a $10,000 difference. So over the course of 10 years, by not purchasing those 2 points, we pay $10,000 more in interest. So all things being equal, provided we were to stay in this house for 10 years, we'd be much better off buying those 2 points. This is just another way that we can use an amortization schedule for comparison purposes. Thank you for attending my course, Creating an Amortization Schedule in Excel. I really appreciate you following it to the very end and hope you found the information useful in all that you do. Best of luck, and I look forward to seeing you at another course.